The Creative Coliseum would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on treaty land, referred to as Treaty 4 territory, and that all people here are beneficiaries of this treaty. Treaty 4 encompasses the lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect and honor the treaties that were made on all territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we are committed to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous nations in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration.
There's definitely two approaches to how myself personally could have handled the situation, and I think one of them being very negative and hold this sort of grudge and revenge like mindset. And I think me as a person, that's just not what I'm about.
Welcome to another episode of Creative Coliseum. I am Allysia.
I am David.
And we are going to be sitting down with Lucas Frison and Ryan Straschnitzki, who have just completed a docu-series, season 1 on AMI called We Were Broncos.
Yes, it is available now. It's in the show notes. It's free. Go check it out. It's a wonderful series.
And this is really exciting for us because we're talking to people who are like, we get the experience to talk to people who are like, actually doing really interesting artistic stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm very stoked that there's someone in the community who's someone in Saskatchewan who's making something of this caliber, who's like, he's made it. Lucas has made it.
Lucas has made it. Actually, so Lucas is involved in a company called Prairie Cat Productions, and he's gone full time now. That was something that recently happened, working on TV shows, movies. I think they've done some like corporate type work. I mean, almost every company in town has, but
you kind of have to.
You kind of have to.
You can't just like pay all them bills with following your dreams and filmmaking, I guess. Here,
but to be fair, like Lucas has done a lot of original work, and you can find a lot of it still online, like the film Talent. There's another film called Fragments of Penny, which is a shorter film, and he pitched a film called Pen Pals, and actually did get funding. They might be shooting that actually right now or next week. This is for context. We're filming this in the summer of 2025, and he was about to shoot that film right away too. So he did take some time out of his very busy schedule to stop in here and chat with us, and so did Ryan as well.
Yeah. So we've got Lucas in person and Ryan on Zoom, and basically this conversation is going to cover the experience of being the subject, as Ryan is, of a documentary series, because it's about his life.
Yes.
So to say that Ryan is the actor in this is probably not the best term. It's about him. It's about his journey post spinal injury in playing sports, especially trying to get to an Olympic level caliber at them. So it's sort of his journey, and Lucas is the filmmaker, director, telling the story and helping shape the story that Ryan is living. So we talk about Ryan's experience, kind of being the front man of his own story and what that's like. But we also talk to Lucas about the experience of creating a docuseries and getting into a little bit of those details as well.
I think that's what makes this interview so unique, is that I think a lot of times they would do their interviews separately, right? Ryan's been interviewed quite a bit in the media from his involvement with the Humboldt Broncos hockey team and all the stuff surrounding that we'll talk about in the show. And Lucas is more just the filmmaking side of things. So to have them both on at the same time, it's really neat to see that the different perspectives and how the experience was for both of them. It was very different.
Yeah, it was a wonderful interview. I'm glad I got to be a part of it, and I hope you enjoy it as well.
Yeah, we'll see you in a bit, but we do have to do one thing first.
Got an ad, guys. Got an ad.
You love ads. I know you do.
Hey there, this is Allysia from Piano TV. I'm a piano teacher, and I've got a bunch of videos up on YouTube if you want to check those out. I also host free monthly webinars on a variety of piano-related topics and make courses about learning piano, whether you're a complete beginner or if you're an intermediate level student. If you are interested in staying up to date with the things I've got going on, you can visit pianotv.net and join my mailing list, where you will also receive a free ebook on how to practice the piano. The courses that I offer open for registration in August, and they run from September to April, where you'll join a group of like-minded individuals and receive personal feedback from myself. Whether you're 29 or 92, it's never too late to learn. Hey there, welcome to another episode of Creative Coliseum. I'm Allysia and Dave. We are your hosts, and we're sitting here with Lucas Frison and Ryan Straschnitzki. And we're going to be talking to them about a TV series that they put together recently that is pretty exciting and that you'll be able to watch.
Yeah, you will be able to watch this. So I guess before we get going, I mean, you're two new people to our. Well, no, actually, Lucas, you have been on the podcast once before.
Yes, a couple years ago. Yeah.
Yes, talking about. I think we just talked about Batman the whole time.
We did. Batman movies. Yeah.
That's what we did. But there's a very different context this time. So maybe just one by one. Lucas, you first. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and. You're a filmmaker, so tell us about that.
Yeah, for sure. I've been a filmmaker in Regina for the last 10 plus years, over 10 years now. I had went to film school at the University of Regina, finished that up in 2014 and kind of jumped into things ever since then, ranging from documentary stuff to scripted stuff and kind of everything in between.
Yeah, and you actually you did a film with Andrew Valdez, right?
Yeah, Andrew Valdez.
Because we interviewed him about it, and
yes,
yeah, that came up.
Yeah, a few projects. Andrew's been in most of Talent was one. He's been in a couple shorts of mine as well. We have another feature coming up that Andrew will have a small role in. So always try and keep Andrew involved.
Yes, he was the mailman in Pen Pals as well.
He was,
I think
yes.
that's the other context.
Yes,
yeah. So yes, and we also have Ryan here via Zoom, coming in. You're in Edmonton right now? No, where are you at?
Airdrie?
Calgary.
Calgary. We just kept picking.
We're going around the Alberta map.
Pick Alberta cities till we find one. But yes, zooming in from
Calgary.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about yourself too, and actually, I'm curious to hear like how you got hooked up with Lucas here, because obviously you used to be a hockey player. Lucas is a filmmaker. I mean, I know Lucas used to be a hockey player, but very different backgrounds. So tell me a bit about that.
Yes, I grew up playing hockey here in Calgary, and then when I was about 16, I had to move up north towards Edmonton to play minor hockey if I wanted to play junior hockey and get closer and closer to college and pro. And then ultimately, when I was 18, I started my rookie season with the Humboldt Broncos after I was traded there from the Whitecourt Wolverines for the AJHL. Played my rookie season there, and then on April 6th of 2018, our team collided with the semi-truck. And then after that, I was diagnosed with a spinal cord injury. And, kind of the rest is history. I decided, you know what, I'm going to get back into sport. I'm going to get into physiotherapy, and I'm going to try and pursue a Paralympic dream. So ever since that day, I've been training towards playing in the Paralympics.
In terms of so then with Lucas, I know there's no easy way to talk about this subject matter. So we're diving right into it right away, but we do have to get out of the way for those people who don't have context. So obviously you were connected to that tragedy in Humboldt as well in some way. And so I think that's maybe where that connection comes with you and Ryan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was very close friends with Mark Cross, the assistant coach, who died in the crash. And in soon after the crash and in the months that followed and the year that followed, really, I did a documentary for CBC called Humboldt: The New Season, which was kind of following the team after the crash. So, there was a lot a ton going on during that time. Ryan can speak to that kind of thing more than anyone. So me and Ryan didn't cross paths during that project. But, he was someone that I always followed from afar. I knew that what he was doing with sledge hockey in the years after the crash for a number of years and pursuing that at an elite level. When he transitioned more recently in the last year and a half, 2 years to wheelchair basketball, I kind of saw a headline about that. And it sparked my curiosity a bit. And then I kind of reached out to him for the first time and also the other things that he had going on, his charity foundation that he had started and all these other things. I had heard a ton of great things about Ryan. So we got in touch and kind of started a little bit of brainstorming to see if there might be a documentary project that, we could get going on. And it was something that I thought people would be compelled to follow his story. So that's kind of the very beginnings of it.
Awesome. So, Ryan, could you maybe tell us a little bit about why you wanted to? I feel like doing a documentary where you're the main character has to be a little invasive, at least in some kind of way. So, what made you want to do that and pursue that as a project? And could you tell us a little bit about the project itself, too, please?
Yeah. So when I got the direct message from Lucas on Instagram, I wasn't too sure about it because, I'd been asked to write a book or do all these other sorts of projects. But then, we kind of looked into it and his relations with, the ties to Humboldt and Mark Cross and everything like that. And the previous documentary he did with former teammate of mine, Braden Cameron, Derek Patter. I think was it just those two, or is there more?
Yeah, those are the main two, but Smitty was involved as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, a couple other ones. Those are the main ones.
So because of the ties there, I knew that, maybe this was a cool opportunity, and he did a great job with that documentary. So I thought, why not, right? It's a cool opportunity to let people know where I'm at now, and what I'm continually pursuing each and every day. And the project is called We Were Broncos, and it follows my wheelchair basketball career. It was my transition from the sled hockey program here in Calgary and the national program to wheelchair basketball, where now I've always thought, when one door closes, another one opens, and the pursuit of playing in the Paralympics for wheelchair basketball is the next open door. So it kind of follows along the journey and gets the ins and outs, and reflects on some old memories from my time in Humboldt as well.
I did want to mention too, because you two brought up the last documentary that you're both, well, Lucas, you directed obviously, but I know Ryan was in that documentary too. What was the title of that? It was on CBC.
Yeah, Humboldt the New Season. So Ryan didn't appear in that one at all.
We filmed Ryan though. That's why I'm mistaken.
Well, Jacob Wasserman.
Was it Jacob?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, Jacob Wasserman. So so Jacob was in it just briefly. But yeah, that Humboldt the New Season, that was a CBC documentary, and it came out in 2019, about a year and a half after the crash. So that was following the team kind of in the aftermath and the season after, and like Ryan had said, Braden Cameron, Derek Patter, they were the two survivors of the crash that returned to play for the team that year. So kind of following their journey, and that was a 1 hour TV doc. So 45 minutes with commercials, and there was a lot of story to cram in there in that time. So yeah, it's I'm definitely proud of how that turned out. But with a series like We Were Broncos, we have more runway to tell more of Ryan's story, which I think it opens up a lot of possibilities. So that was one nice thing, doing a series compared to a one-off that really interested me.
Yeah, and I only say this because I was involved in your crew, and so my memory is terrible these days. I'm getting old, and I'm a professor, so it's I have
part of the package.
I have no memory left. But we spend a lot of time in Humboldt, and you're right. That was one thing that was interesting about the documentary, was that it was wonderful, but it was so quick. Like, you and I were there, I think, weekend after weekend after weekend, and then when I saw the final product, I was like, wow, like that just encapsulated that almost year of our lives so quickly. And the year of their lives, right? And you just don't get to dig into all the things that we actually like a lot of the stuff we filmed wasn't obviously put in there, right? Because you have to find the best bits, right? Yeah. So I think this is a much nicer avenue for that kind of content.
Yeah, no, I agree too. But at the same time, like with any project, lots of stuff hits the cutting room floor and doesn't make it into the final doc. But that's also an approach as a filmmaker that you need to take, because you need to, craft the story as it happens, but also tell it in a compelling way that's going to make people want to watch and make people want to come back. Ryan just kind of naturally did a lot of the heavy lifting for me as a storyteller because of his, personality and his comfort on camera and his willingness to be open and kind of take a approach of nothing is off limits. And so early on in the process, before we started, like when me and Ryan were just talking, I tried to kind of make that clear in terms of the expectations that we have to set going in, and he was always more than open and willing. So in my head, I know, okay, this is something that could be really successful, because I've also dealt with other documentary projects that maybe got to development that ultimately didn't get made, where the subject at first seems on board, and then you start getting deeper into it, and they get cold feet. That's me. So it's also something I've learned about the process, where okay, I have to make sure I lay out the expectations, early on, just so everyone's on the same page.
Actually, one of the things that really surprised me when watching We Were Broncos is how easy, like how you just seem so natural, Ryan, at I was going to say performing. I guess you're living your life, but it's not easy for people to just be authentic on a camera, and speak in a way that's natural and not stilted. Do you have performing experience, or is this all new?
No performing experience. Cannot act. So everything's quite authentic. But I mean, I feel like I got nothing to hide or hold back from, and yeah, it's just being as authentic as possible. So, but yeah, I mean, I cannot act for anything.
Good. Well, this is Dave. Can you work some studio magic? I'd love to see a preview.
I can. This is magical. Yes. So we are going to watch a trailer from Prairie Cat Productions. This is We Were Broncos, a trailer for season 1.
It's been 7 years since the Humboldt Broncos bus crash, where 16 people lost their lives and 13 were left injured. It's something that I think about every day.
After surgery, I realized that I had a spinal cord injury, and one of the doctors there came in and told me, you have a less than 2% chance of ever walking again. Proven to myself that no matter the situation you're in, you can achieve your goals still, and one of that was always being Paralympics, because that's the highest level as an athlete you can get to. My goal is to play in wheelchair basketball in the 2028 Paralympics that are happening in LA, but I think within 4 years it's possible to do anything.
I'm Ryan Straschnitzki, and this is We Were Broncos.
Beautiful. So what I would love to get into, we've got a couple different things. We want to kind of tackle a few different areas in this discussion. One thing that I want to know is a little bit more about Ryan, your personal journey here and the story that's being told. But I also want to know about the kind of technical, creative aspect. Because with our podcast, we do like to focus on creative people and the things that they're making. So I like getting into the nitty gritty a little bit. So that's my agenda to set it up.
That's our agenda.
Yes.
I know we've talked a little bit about your background already, Ryan, in terms of transitioning into sledge hockey, and then for those who haven't watched the show, maybe I should say this right off the bat. This is spoiler alert for the show,
for the first episode,
because we are going to get into details. So if you want to watch the show, check the show notes, check the links, go do that now. It is free to watch the first 3 episodes, I believe. So go do that. For those of you who've already watched or if you want spoilers, here we go. Anyway, so yes, you started off transitioning to sledge hockey in the first episode, and then kind of finding out that maybe you weren't going to go quite as far as you wanted to in sledge hockey, and then moved to basketball. I'm an fellow athlete, maybe not to the caliber of you, but I did play some high level basketball. Actually, I played for Team Saskatchewan once upon a time. So
I didn't even know that.
So yeah, I know. People don't assume this, but so I'm a huge basketball fan. So I am, and I have played multiple sports. So I'm curious to kind of hear a little bit about your journey in trying to transition into these new sports and learn them, and what that's like as a high level athlete too, having to kind of not start over entirely, but in some ways you are starting over fresh every time you jump into a new sport. So I'm curious to hear your journey through that.
Yeah, so when I first started playing sled hockey, my first goal was to play in the Paralympics. And, the first step is trying to work your way up, try to get as good as you can in the sport and play for Team Canada. So I spent about 4 years trying to make my way to the national program, and would continuously go to camps and see where I'm at, and size myself up against some of the national team guys. And I realized, probably one of my first Montreal camps with some of the top guys, I'm like, okay, something's like, I put in so much work. I'm just not quite up to the caliber of speed. Maybe I'll just keep working harder and harder. And as an athlete, that's something that's hard to turn off, right? Where you just want to keep pushing harder and harder. And so it came to a point where I went to my first, Paralympic tryout. And then I finally got cut for the first time, because these other camps, you didn't really get cut. You just went for exposure. So this was the first camp where I actually got cut and realized that I probably won't play for Team Canada ever. And, it was pretty frustrating, because you put in all this work and it feels like it was for nothing almost. So the next step for me was finding that next route to the Paralympics. I knew as an athlete, that drive to want to be great at something and be an athlete and lead by example was something that was sort of burning inside me. And so the next step for me was exploring new sports. So I tried all sorts of sports, and the one that really stuck out to me was wheelchair basketball. So I thought, all right, this is my sport. I know what it's going to take to get to that next level. And throughout the series, you kind of get to see moments of frustration, the beginning processes, but where I was in September compared to where I am now is a completely different player. So I think that trajectory of playing in the Paralympics is in my future, but I just got to continue to put in the work.
So why basketball out of all of the plethora of sports?
I grew up a team sport guy. Individual sports are for certain people, and I feel like for me, I love being around team and just that atmosphere and knowing that you can work together towards something great, like potentially winning a gold medal. I think there's no better feeling than sharing a championship with the people that you worked hard with, that you put your life on the line for, essentially, right? Is it kind of alludes to the Stanley Cup Finals here, right? Is guys play through injuries because they want to win that cup and share it with essentially their brothers, and that's the feeling that I want to chase, because I know how good it is and that the payoff will be worth it. So basketball was like the next best team sport for me, and it was the one where I thought I could actually excel at, versus sled hockey, where I probably wouldn't have a chance to play for Team Canada.
Yeah, actually, I feel like your story echoes a lot of the stories we hear from artists as well, because there's this sense when you're an artist or a creative person that you pick something and then you just grind it out and you get super good at it and you don't give up. And that's sort of what everyone reinforces too, right? So then you maybe become blind to the signs that it's not something that you're going to be Olympic level at, metaphorically or literally speaking in this case. So, I mean, I feel like it must take a lot of courage to actually be able to look that in the face and realize, like, okay, this is not where I'm going to excel. That must be a very challenging thing to do.
Yeah, it was super hard. I mean, I had, sponsors. I had the whole kind of world knew me as like, oh, how's sled hockey going? The sled hockey guy, right? And playing for Team Canada. And there was one person that years ago got a tattoo of me playing sled hockey, right? And I'm like, for me to turn around, I felt like I was not letting, I was letting the sponsors down, the people down, myself down, whatever the case. It was tough because I had all this pressure, I felt like, in order to play for Team Canada on top of the pressure I gave myself. So to turn away from the sport to try something new, I think was very hard for a brief period of time. But I, just focused my energy and attention towards basketball and kind of forgot about the past.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems, at least from my outsiders in perspective, to be helpful that you seem to have a really good grasp of reality. So I don't know, not everyone's going to be able to be so practical, perhaps. But you seem to do it with grace. You seem pretty optimistic about everything.
I got cut multiple times growing up from hockey teams, so I knew what that experience was like. So I kind of learned what I could as a kid and utilized it now, getting cut to this day.
And that really speaks, like you had mentioned, just in comparison to being an artist and a filmmaker, the sense of rejection. And like there's a ton of that in both businesses. So that's a question I've been asked a few times, like, oh, what are some things that people can take away watching the series? And I think a big piece of it is just always setting goals and moving forward past the hard times and still, just grinding forward. When you get that rejection, it sucks, but it's about having to pick yourself back up and setting that new goal, like Ryan talks about in the series, and striving for that next thing. Because a lot of people, and it's they get that rejection and it can cave in on them, and they say, well, this is not for me. I'm just maybe I need to find a completely new path. And that's not what Ryan does at all. And it's so many parallels with filmmaking and the grind there, I see.
Yeah, actually. And I know for yourself, in terms of making TV series with Prairie Cat Productions, I know you've pitched other ones because I've been involved in those pitches, creating music for you. Right. And I think this is the first one that's been picked up for your production company, right? The first TV show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, the first series. Yeah, there's been a few that have, there's always pitches that don't see the light of day because no one has any interest, and that's just part of the game. But then there's a few that gain some momentum and get some development money from a broadcaster. But like you said, this is our first series that has been picked up, which was obviously, exciting for us.
So yeah, you've had a few no's, then, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
And now this is your yes, and what a good yes. Like, I feel like I've seen the show. I was at the premiere actually as well, and I've seen all your work from start to finish because I've been involved in it, right? And I feel like this is really, really high level. Like, there's a really great team at work here. Ryan's a fantastic subject, like a fantastic person and character to kind of follow around. So everything about it just screams like Prairie Cat Productions is on this kind of new trajectory. So,
well, thank you.
So tell me then a bit about this, kind of segueing into getting this pitched then and getting this picked up. for those of us who don't understand how that works or how that happens, maybe let us know a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. And the first step, I guess, is kind of thinking of that initial concept, like, hey, would this be something that A, broadcasters are interested in, and B, an audience would be, interested in watching? Those two main things. Then, once you start developing what that might look like a little bit, the next big step is, in terms of documentary, is reaching out to your subject. Obviously, in this case, Ryan, and starting to talk about things. Well, first seeing if there's any interest whatsoever, and if there is, then starting to talk about things and seeing if it's, a realistic possibility, and if there's a story there to tell, if he's comfortable with putting in the time that and the effort and the fatigue of cameras following you around and that kind of stuff. So that's the next step. If that stuff's all a go, then it's pitching it to a broadcaster and hoping there's some interest there. So because of AMI, who's our broadcaster, they're the accessibility network in Canada. This Ryan story as a wheelchair basketball player and a wheelchair user is something that falls directly in line with what AMI is looking for. So I knew in my head that, well, I'm going to pitch this to them, and first of all, and kind of see how it goes from there. They were immediately interested. That doesn't mean they immediately said yes. You still got to go through kind of the process. So pitch them. There was some interest, maybe some initial little, like some meetings and kind of questions. And then it was, okay, we believe in this enough to give you some development money, which basically just means, taking it a little further in terms of shooting a demo with Ryan, which we went to Calgary and Airdrie and shot for about 3 days in January 2024. That's when we shot the demo. That ends up being a 3.5 minute piece. And then on top of that, it's creating an episode beat sheet. These 6 episodes, really getting into written detail of what's going to happen. It's a documentary. So obviously there's a huge element of, we don't know what's going to happen from here, but you're trying to lay it out with the story possibilities, because it has to show that, is there, enough story here to tell? And then, creating some of the logistical things like a budget and a financial structure and all those other things. So we went through that process, development. We had a good feeling about it, but you never know. And ultimately they greenlit it. AMI did in April 2024, and we were kind of off to the races after that.
Wow. So there's a couple things. So I'm not a filmmaker. I'm just like the average layperson here. But the thing that strikes me as incredible about this whole process is that there are so many stages in which things can go wrong or get shut down. Yeah. So it's like you're passing through these like a lot of gauntlets, basically, and then to actually end up with a finished product. And, being on these platforms is incredible that you made it there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is so many steps, and it's maybe a little scary if you look back at all the hoops you had to jump through. I try not to, because then, you're going to do it again over and over for the other projects. So you don't want to kind of think about that stuff, but every step is also exciting. It's exciting to think of a new idea. It's exciting to have, to approach this person that you didn't know before, and them to be interested and on board with the idea, especially when it's such a huge part of their life. It's exciting to have a broadcaster give you development money, and obviously the big one with them greenlighting a show. And then fast forward through it all, you don't know whether the final product is what it's going to be. You hope it's going to be what you envisioned. Obviously it's going to be different, but at the end of the day, you hope it's good and something that people are drawn to and people are interested in. So yeah, it went well on this one. That's not always the case, but it is a ton of steps. But as an artist, it's probably the most rewarding job in the world. So that's why you do it.
Well, and one other thing that strikes me about this process, and this comes up with a lot of creative work too, is you're definitely like not doing everything up front and then crossing your fingers and that hope like someone's going to pick it up. And I think a lot of people approach creative work that way, right? They're like, I'm going to just make the show and then we'll see what happens. I'm going to make the album and see what happens. But this seems like a much more realistic process, right? You're not going past what you can actually comfortably, manage.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so when I first, came out of film school, and I still know some people and have some friends that might take that approach, which is perfectly fine, because people just want to, maybe they have been rejected on so many projects and they really just want to make something. And I understand that too. When I first came out of film school and kind of was starting out, like I had a day job and that kind of thing, but it was, okay, I'm going to apply for a couple grants. If I don't get any money, then I'm just going to make this short film or whatever it is, and kind of going with that approach where I'm making this no matter what. Now,
Right.
You get experience and you get older, and I have a family and a house and things like that. So you grow up and things change a little bit in terms of, just supporting myself and my family financially. So then you have to take a different approach and play the game by the rules that have been established, if you will.
I mean, it seems to be working out for you with those rules in place in particular.
Yeah. So I guess then now kind of bringing Ryan into this discussion, because there's, this is a really big commitment for somebody to, like you say, allow cameras to follow you around and then, we're trying to find a story here too, right? And so I'm really curious about Ryan's connection in terms of being I guess you're kind of the author of the story in a lot of ways, because it is your story and it's your life, right? And even though the cameras are following you and the editors are, picking out the pieces, it is you who's the creator in the beginning. So what is that like for you two working together, trying to hash that out? Like is there a discussion about like, hey, we're going to try to film this thing, we're going to do that thing? I guess what's it like for you on your side, Ryan, in terms of your contribution to that filmmaking process?
Yeah, like we try to plan out as much as we can. If there are big things happening in my life, for example, like, there's a tournament that'll be in one of the episodes where we had to align, getting there and doing all these certain things, right? It was a bit of work on either end. So we had to obviously keep our schedules aligned and make sure things worked and move this or cancel that. And then, of course, when they are in town, right, you only have a limited time to film, right? So it's a full day's worth of filming, and it can be exhausting at times, but you know that the payoff would be worth it. And I'm very happy with the results. I mean, meeting the guys and getting to know them over the past, I guess, like since 2024, right? It's been incredible, and I think they shot it well, and I'm glad that they made me look good on camera. So I can't really complain. And yeah, it was just it was a really cool experience.
I don't think it was very difficult to make you look good on camera. No, you did a great job. You were just a natural, and even doing the voiceover. I just have to commend you on this as an audio engineer. I've done a lot of voiceover recording over the years, and like I have people who are actors and they come into my studio and they're like, "Oh, this will take like 2 minutes." 2 hours later, we're still reading the same 30 seconds of dialogue, because it is very hard sometimes to do voiceover well, right? And you were just, I was actually amazed. I think I turned to somebody and asked, like, is that Ryan's voiceover in the film too? Because that's a lot of work to do that. So what was that like being a voiceover artist? I want to hear your experience with that.
That was honestly pretty hard. Like we had lines, yeah, to your point, it was very hard. There were times where Lucas and I would sit there in a quiet room or at his hotel room, whatever, and just go over these lines over and over and over again. And then he'd, like I said, I can't act for anything. So he's like, "Oh, try it this way." And I do it the exact same way I did before. And it just, eventually we got it. But, I'm really happy with how it turned out. But doing audio, I was like, man, I respect the people that do this for a living.
Thank you very much. No, we need to hear that. We need to hear that. We get forgotten a lot on sets, No, you did great work though. It was fantastic work.
Yeah, and like it is, to your point, Dave, it is tough, and so a lot of them were written lines. Like obviously, there's the credits at the end that play in every episode, and that's kind of an AMI accessible kind of a approach. And actually, on this topic, I'll add in that's one more thing that's interesting about AMI shows is that the filmmakers are required to take an approach with IDV, which is integrated described video. So it's basically this approach of being more descriptive in our storytelling, and that's something that's required for all AMI shows. So it's just kind of the idea that someone who is blind or partially sighted can be an audience member and fully understand what's going on without added described video. So the described video, if you will, is baked into the show. So that was like Ryan and I, you kind of the behind the scenes crew. So myself and the editors, we go through like with AMI kind of a little few hour training thing, which we did, forever ago, and kind of the introduction to what IDV is. And I had done something for 1.5 hour one-off episode for an anthology series for AMI a couple years ago called Our Community. So I had been introduced to it a little bit, and I had an understanding of it, but it's still it creates some obstacles for sure in terms of the storytelling. So Ryan and I had a ton of conversations about it, and like he ultimately, a lot of that fell on his shoulders in terms of, okay, like you answered the question, you answered it this way, but this time, can you kind of include that where we are? So we're here at Calgary in the Saddle Dome. We're watching the Calgary Flames. It just kind of, he quickly became a natural at it. And I think all of us got better as it went on. And then it starts to become more natural. So, like, if we do end up getting a season 2, which is something I think we absolutely want to do, it's going to be a lot easier the second time with these things in mind with IDV. But also some of the voiceover, the narration, all of those were little things that were helping with the IDV and making sure that it was clear what was going on screen.
So is it true then, like, so IDV is not something that most people are going to be considering when they're making films and shows?
Yes. Yeah. So this is kind of, I had never heard of IDV before we're doing something for AMI. So, but at the end of the day, someone, maybe when you're first learning about it or first told about it, it's like, oh, that's going to be a bit heavy-handed for,
because aren't you told like show, don't tell or something in the Film 101?
And so then you, in the back of your head, maybe, the glass half empty kind of thought is, okay, like we have to do this, but for audience member or viewers who are not blind or partially sighted, it might seem repetitive or heavy-handed, that kind of thing. But it does end up, like, if I didn't describe it to anyone beforehand, the end product, you don't notice.
I would not have even thought that.
Yeah. So it's, you got to put a lot of work into it, and that's a requirement, but you get better at it as you go.
Mm-hmm. It just brings up some issues of accessibility in art in general too, right? I mean, the fact that that's not just standard practice for people, it does exclude some folks from experiencing art in the same way that someone else might, right? So I think it's just I wish that was baseline is what I'm trying to get at. I wish there was more of that type of thing going on,
especially because clearly when it's done well, it's not something that's gonna be jarring or distracting in any way.
Like I know a lot of times I'll turn things on and it's like this generic voice doing a description, like you're talking about how you specifically recorded Ryan's voice, and it was so much better to hear Ryan's voice doing that because it has a more personal touch. It's the person in the actual thing you're watching, like it doesn't feel as cold and as disconnected from the material, right?
Absolutely. And going into it, I didn't plan to have Ryan do narration for the series. Those were kind of some conversations that came up as we went along, and initially, like in my head when I started making the show, it's like, no, we're not going to have narration from Ryan. We don't need that, and that's not an approach I want to take. But then you started having some conversations, and there's some gaps to fill with IDV, so maybe this is something we try. Ryan would send me, when we started, because we obviously, to record his audio, we need, with a sound guy or in studio or something like that, when we were starting in the early process of the edit, I would just get him to send me voice notes on iPhone. So he texts, like, how many voice notes did you text me over? So many.
Lots.
Like tons. And then so the editors would use those as placeholders. So then, it gives you a sense of,
good idea.
okay, is this going to work story wise? Is this going to work in terms of filling in the blanks and is the beat of the story going to work and that kind of stuff? And then we would just replace those with long recording sessions with Ryan and our audio guy, Kyle, who you obviously know well, Dave.
I know Kyle. Yeah. Took over my company. Yeah.
yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Yes. So anyways, I feel like we've covered a little bit about the art. We've covered about kind of where things are going in terms of your collaboration. What is the future of this series then? Where are we going from here? Because I mean, there's 6 episodes for season 1. I'm assuming Ryan had a great time and wants to do more, right? Like, even after all that grueling voice work, is that?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, are you hoping for a season 2? Is that kind of what you're hoping?
Absolutely. I think when me and Lucas talked, it was the idea that leading up to the Paralympics, it'd be cool that each year we kind of see where I'm at the trajectory, and then by season 4 we find out whether or not I'm going to LA, which would be really cool. We kind of talked about that idea because let's say we get to that point and it doesn't go the way we thought it was going to go. We just kind of repeat the process and maybe find something new, right, and start over again. Or everything works out and we get to go to LA, right? So that's kind of the idea. It'd be I hope it works out, and I think it can. So yeah, kind of that's where my head's at. I don't know about you, Lucas.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That was kind of how I pitched it to AMI originally. Like, okay, here's the core of the pitch, and if things go well, I would love to do 4 seasons, and here's a very brief look of how they would look, with season 4 kind of culminating in that Paralympic 2028 LA. Also, 2028 is the 10-year anniversary of the Humboldt bus crash as well.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
it's also it's filling in some of those blanks of, okay, here's season 1, here's season 4. But then a broadcaster, there's what about season 2 and 3? But Ryan has a charity foundation where he travels around and gifts accessible sports equipment to people with disabilities. Lots of the time they're young people, and Ryan can speak a bit more to that. But a lot of other avenues in his life that are just really interesting things to follow, like Straz Strong.
Yeah, like Straz Strong has been taking off. We started adding the right pieces of the puzzle. We just actually started renting an office space. Like, we're starting to grow, and we're very, compared to most charities, we haven't been around that long, and to fight for grants to give out, is tough, and it's something that I'm learning along the way. But I think with everything that I'm doing outside of the charity as well, with sport and social media and some of the other projects I have on the go, right? I think it allows me that opportunity, that kind of advantage over most charities to get into the world of more, I'd say younger audience, I guess, and for people with disabilities, because it often gets overlooked. And so that's where I think our approach with the Straz Strong can kind of really, start to benefit those around us and really, make this story that much more better, right? I think it's one of those things where, having kind of your hand in each sort of pile and trying these new adventures allows for good content to see whether or not it works out or not. And that's kind of the overlying theme of everything is giving it a shot and, never giving up and finding other avenues when one doesn't work out.
Yeah, it sort of just seems like you're living a really interesting life. So naturally, really interesting stories are going to flow from that for any documentary work.
Exactly.
I'm curious about, so kind of having a sense of this 4-season trajectory that you're envisioning if things go well. At what point would you know if you were chosen to represent Canada?
Probably the year of. Every year they have tryouts for Team Canada. And so I'm going to my first camp this summer, and then I'm hoping to leave a lasting impression to keep getting invited back. And then come 2028, I think they'll have tryouts to see who's going to go to the Paralympics. And, it's going to, lead up to that point. So I'm just putting in the work.
Wow, I feel a sense of, I'm just a random person, but that's like already good TV too. Just, being a part of that suspense and the will he make it kind of thing is very exciting.
It kind of reminds me, like, if you watched Welcome to Wrexham, is anybody watching that show where it's like
season 1 I saw.
Yeah, because it's like it's the same thing where it's like their whole goal is to make it to a certain stage of the soccer pyramid in England, and it just so happens that they just keep winning, right? Like every season, and it's making for really good television.
And
there's a suspense.
And when they get to that, they have this first goal set, and then they reach that goal, but it's not over because there's a new goal.
There's a new goal.
That's like how Ryan approaches a lot of things too, right? If he talks about in the series, the goal isn't just to make Team Canada and play at the 2028 Paralympics. Well, it's to win a medal there.
For sure. Right. Yes. Not just getting there. It's then, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
That'd be too limiting of a goal.
Yeah. 100%. And just on the season 2 note and kind of beyond, the experience of making the show was, speaking for myself, was so positive. Getting to know Ryan and building a relationship with him, that really informs me that because you really have to put a lot of yourself into this, and that is something you think about. Well, was the process enjoyable or was it a grind? Like I had so much fun making this. There is some heavy content in it, obviously, with the bus crash and that kind of stuff, but we had a lot of fun making this. There was a lot of laughs, a lot of smiles, and that comes across in the storytelling as well, and it just kind of contributed to an overall positive feeling, which I think is something that I want viewers to take away absolutely as well when they're watching.
Well, it absolutely comes through, and maybe one of my apprehensions is if I'm watching something that has as a part of its orbit a tragedy. I'm always a little curious on how a filmmaker is going to approach that, right? Because it can be really heavy and difficult, and I have to be like kind of in the right mind frame. And I obviously feel really ignorant saying that because you went through it, Ryan. But as a viewer, it's such a relief that you're so warm and optimistic, and the tone of the show reflects that. Because it I don't know, it gives me a sense of it gives the viewer a sense of courage, or like there's a light after darkness, or there could be.
Yeah. I think there's definitely two approaches to how I myself personally could have handled the situation, and I think one of them being very negative and hold this sort of grudge and revenge like mindset. And I think the reason I didn't do that is because it's almost too easy, right? That's what people expect, and I think me as a person, that's just not what I'm about. I'm always about putting in the work and moving past certain obstacles, and proving that you can't change the past. It's always about moving forward. That's kind of how I look at it. That's how I perceive it. I can't speak on behalf of all my teammates, but I know personally, looking forward and moving past it and getting over those negative feelings and mindsets is what I'm all about.
Actually, so on the subject of challenges, one thing that I was curious about, actually, for both of you, is there something that you could identify as like this was the most challenging thing about working on season 1?
One thing that sticks out to me early on, just in terms of the storytelling, I would say, is Ryan's local club wheelchair basketball team, and just kind of the troubles that they were having. Kind of, I don't know, logistically, they didn't have enough players, and there wasn't tournaments. Like a bunch of tournaments were canceled, and like initially going in, it's like, okay, we're going to shoot this tournament, and we're going to shoot this tournament, but the first tournament that we filmed wasn't until January, almost halfway through the shooting. So like there was some thoughts for myself early on where I was kind of like, holy shit, we're making a show that the main thing is wheelchair basketball, and there's not going to be enough wheelchair basketball, like that. So that was like, like you have those minor panics, but then things kind of evolve. But then I also reminded myself early on, well, this is the story. So that's okay. If that ends up happening and we take a different turn, that's okay.
Yeah. I know, having worked on some, well, with you as well, but on other reality type television, sometimes like as a crew member, the day will come, we had this plan, and then that day comes and it's all gone. And you're like, well, what do we film now? What do we do? And sometimes we'd film for like 2 hours or 3 hours, and that's it, that whole day, because you just had nothing to film. So you would like run to like, well, let's take this quick shot of this thing. Or I know you'd be on the phone like, oh, can you show up and do this thing with me now? Can we come over and do this thing? And you just have to like fill in the blanks.
Last minute planning.
Lots. It's really challenging as a creative person to work that way and not have any control over what's going to happen.
And also on that note, like another reason why the experience was so positive is because of Ryan's contributions. Like, he has an associate producer credit on the series, and it's 100% absolutely deserved in terms of helping me with logistics and all the conversations that we had. He was so collaborative, suggesting people in his life that might be good people for us to talk to, and some, hidden gems. Some hidden gems came out of that for sure. So it really helped with the storytelling, because I've also been on the opposite side where you have subjects that are on board, but they aren't responding to their messages or phone calls all the time, or they're pretty difficult to schedule around, and they don't have nearly as collaborative of a mindset. So with how helpful Ryan was with everything, it makes it so we didn't really have any days where, okay, we're coming to because most of the shooting was in Calgary, and myself and two of the crew members would travel from Regina, and then I'd hired two locals in Calgary as well. We didn't run, so everything is very scheduled beforehand because we had to make this trip out there. No days were completely canned or canceled because of that. Some things change and some things happen, but then you're making phone calls and filling in the blanks. But because of all the help that Ryan gave with that, it wasn't like, oh my God, we only shot for 45 minutes this day. It was such a waste of money or anything like that.
You always had things to do.
Yeah.
I'm sensing here then, after you win that medal and, you've accomplished all that, maybe there's a career for you in producing or something like that. Hey, like what?
I got a lot to learn first.
What was your biggest challenge, Ryan?
I think definitely the scheduling sometimes when you'd have to think like last minute, but I mean, Lucas is a pro and he kind of suggested things and I could, kind of put the, like certain things together and make things work and kind of hopefully add some more to the story. But I think some of the other stuff too was trying to balance it into a full day. So if I had training or if I had something to do during the day and then I had to go, spend the next, just scheduling on my end personally. But I won't, without revealing too much, there was one day where our club team, like you mentioned, tournaments got canceled and it was supposed to be out of province. And I had to drive out there in the span of less than, I would say less than 24 hours. It was way less than that. But yeah, it was a long drive, but we did it. It was a great experience. It was just that drive out to Saskatoon is can be a lot sometimes, but it was something very minor, but that was probably, I was like, okay, I'm never doing this again.
Saskatoon to Calgary, what is that? Like, is that 8 hours?
It's more, isn't it?
Yeah, around there.
5 and a bit.
Oh, is it?
Really? Oh, okay. It's closer. Yeah, I guess.
Because it's further north.
Yes.
It's not too long to the point where it's like you just go numb, but it's also not short where it's like, oh, I'll just listen to one podcast or something, or two.
Yeah.
Depending on where people live in the world, though, these can seem like incredible distances because a lot of places that are more densely packed, like if you live in New York, it's like, oh, it's like 2 hours to here, 2 hours to there, an hour to Boston, whatever. So the idea that like the next major city is 5 to 8 hours away, it is a really long drive.
Yeah. I'm still not used to it, and I've been living here my whole life. No, I've gone to Calgary, Edmonton lots.
And so when Lucas was talking about like having to actually be based out of Regina and go to Calgary, like that's no small thing to figure out logistically.
Absolutely, yeah. And just in terms of the drive, I was lucky because I always had my audio guy Kyle with me to keep me entertained, so I wasn't ever bored on the drive.
He's entertaining.
Yes. Many games of 20 questions.
Oh, nice.
but also it is like when you start to schedule those things logistically with you really got to jam pack the days and make sure that every day you're going there's something that's going to be happening, and if something gets canceled or if something changes with Ryan's schedule, then we have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D, or else the nature of the logistics. So I'm wearing two hats, the director hat and also the producer hat in terms of you're spending a lot of money going each trip, and there's like my DOP, Jeremy Ratzlaff, who's based out of Moose Jaw, he was doing these trips every time as well with his van that's packed full of all the equipment and gear that we're renting from him as well. So you need to use that time, wisely to make sure that you're capturing all the time while you're there, or else you're just gonna go through your budget so fast and not have the story to tell at the end of the day. So yeah, tons of logistics and planning, and just being prepared as much as you can in advance is so important, because things are going to go off the rails inevitably. But then, if you're more prepared, it's easier to pivot.
And also speaking from these like smaller productions, right? Like, because it sounds like you said, like director, producer, like you're wearing all these different hats, and that's not typically the case on some bigger productions where you might just wear the director hat and be talking to producers and having a collaboration. But you do have was Elise involved in
Yes.
producing this? Because Elise
Yeah.
is your business partner still, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
So Elise and I produced together. So thank God I wasn't the only producer on it, because she did a ton of work behind the scenes. She was on set a few times, but she lives in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's, like a different part of Canada. So when Ryan had one tournament in Montreal, that we went there just for a real quick trip, a weekend basically. Elise drove up from Ottawa, which was just a 2-hour drive.
Yeah.
So she joined us on set for those days. She made it out to Saskatchewan for one other time as well. But so much planning, logistics, the paperwork that Elise is doing behind the scenes that frees me up to do, some of the more creative stuff.
yeah, big shout out to Elise, because I haven't had her on the show. Maybe that's
Great
somebody
idea.
I should be talking to
Absolutely.
eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do miss her out here. She was wonderful.
Yeah.
So what does Prairie Cat Productions have on the go?
Yeah, coming up here, we're starting to shoot a movie in 3 weeks, which is insanely close.
man.
Wow.
A little bit scary. So yeah, we're shooting a feature. It's called One Perfect Date. We got Telefilm Canada funding, and then that kind of starts the avalanche of other support like Creative Saskatchewan. We have a distributor, Film Option International, on board there, based out of Montreal. So yeah, it's I'm also wearing a couple hats for that one: writer, director, producer. There's other producers involved as well, which helps out a lot. But shooting that all locally in Regina. We'll shoot all of July and the first week of August as well. So lots of local talent involved, as well as a few people coming in from other spots in Canada. And it's a fun romantic comedy that will
rom-com.
rom-com
Nice.
come out in late 2026, early 2027. But that's a big one for us.
That's huge. Wow. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what about you, Ryan? What's next for you?
There's lots of travel coming up here. A couple weddings this summer. Training for basketball. Traveling for Straz Strong. So one of the other things I forgot to mention with Straz Strong is when we make a donation, we actually, we have a small crew that makes a very, very small episode on the person that we're donating it to, so that people know where the money's going, what it bought, and then you get to tell these athletes stories, and maybe they get to kind of champion the Straz Strong on their way to the Paralympics if that's one of their goals, right? And so we're creating all these little snippets and episodes of these individuals receiving the donations. So we're going to Halifax, around Calgary. I have a crew out there in Toronto right now doing a mini one. Just staying busy this summer. We have a charity golf tournament in August. And then come September, it's hopefully you start ramping up for the next season of basketball.
That's amazing. Just it sounds like you're doing so much. You definitely are busy enough to be a producer. I will say that. This is the producer lifestyle.
And
so.
you have a big training camp coming up too.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. So right after Halifax, I go to Toronto for a week long camp with Team Canada. So just lots and lots of basketball and training this summer.
I had one quick question that has nothing to do with this, but for every basketball,
This is where we get into Batman.
No. For every basketball player I encounter, I have to ask this question because it says a lot about the person. So, MJ or LeBron? MJ or LeBron? I have to know.
I got to go MJ. It's a classic.
Good. Excellent. Okay, you've made my good books.
Yeah, MJ all the way.
Yeah, I think after watching The Last Dance, I was like, okay, this is there's no disputing it now, right?
Yeah, I lived through all his era. I lived through Kobe's era, LeBron's. I'm going to say hot take. I actually go MJ, Kobe, and then LeBron. I go LeBron third.
Nice.
I watched them all play, and MJ was incredible. But anyway, you're talking to a basketball player. You got to ask these
Of
questions.
course.
Anyways, before we go, obviously we've shouted out a lot of things here, right? We have Prairie Cat Productions, and we'll put some links in the show notes for that. Straz Strong as well. So, I mean, we can put some show notes and links. Is there anything else you can tell us about, like how people can get involved?
Yeah, on the StrasStrongFoundation.com website, stay up to date with all the events, some of the episodes that we make, with some of the donations that we made, and then all the charity fundraising events that we have as well. So it'll all be on our website.
Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome. Anything else we should shout out?
Yeah, just We Were Broncos. The first 3 episodes are well, depending on when you release this episode,
They will be available by then.
yeah.
Tomorrow, the next one's out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Episode 4 comes out tomorrow, June 16th. So it's kind of every Monday after that. 6 total episodes. So just 3 more weeks, and then they'll all be available. So you can watch them on AMI TV at 7 p.m. Sask time, 9 p.m. EST. So AMI TV is free on every kind of digital cable satellite package. You just kind of got to look for it. If you miss it on TV, AMI Plus is free. You can download the app for free. You can go on your web browser, watch them that way for free. So a lot of different ways to watch. Just hope people will go and check out the show and keep following along.
I also want to shout out your production company as a whole, because there are other things people can go watch too, right? Like there's some stuff online. There's I know talent is available still to
yes, absolutely. Yeah. So my production company, Prairie Cat Productions, we did a feature a number of years ago called Talent. You can rent that on iTunes and Amazon Prime, that kind of thing. And then Humboldt, the new season, the previous doc we did, that's on CBC Gem. CBC Gem. Yeah, you can watch that on CBC Gem.
We got a lot to link. We'll have to have like
a exactly. So a few different things to watch, and check out We Were Broncos right now on AMI Plus.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and making the time today. Good luck with both of your future endeavors.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll be back to talk about season 2.
Yes, absolutely.
Have a medal around your neck when you get to season 4. We'll do that episode too. We'll do that one too.
There we go.
All right. Well, have a good one. Take care.
You too.
Thanks.
Thanks for checking out this episode of The Creative Coliseum. We'll see you next time. The Creative Coliseum is mixed and edited by David Roman. Executive producers are Allysia and David Roman. Gear support provided by Roman Empire Studios. Theme music created by Roman Music YQR. Recorded live on location in Regina, Canada, Treaty 4 territory. Voiceover performed by Sundance Robson. Logo design provided by Danielle Austin. Special thanks Kyle Parkinson, Laura Posada, and Rob Hillstead. The Creative Coliseum is a Nerd Party entertainment production in conjunction with Piano TV. Now get back out there and conquer your creativity.